Welcome back, folks, for another video in this series on a Homelite Zip chainsaw rebuild. You can see the other videos on how we tore it down, including the Tillotson carburetor, and rebuilt that. And so what I've been doing here is got everything taken apart and cleaned up. I decided I was going to go ahead and paint it. Wasn't going to do that at first because I kind of like the nostalgic look of these old saws like that, but I did go ahead and paint it, and I found a pretty good color. I actually got this off of Leon's chainsaw. Pretty close match. This is a Duplicolor. It's a blue metallic, very close. Looks really good. So brushed all that up, etc., and got it all cleaned up in here. And so ordered was able to find a bunch of gaskets here, and some of these I could make myself, like this one. I made this one myself. That's not too bad. This one would be really difficult to make yourself with the limited tools that I have, but I found this one, probably like the last 2 or 3 on eBay. Also found this one, head gasket, so that's good. Even found, well, this is pretty easy. This is a really standard, readily available rim sprocket. We'll get to that later. These were the hardest ones to find, at least for me. These are the two seals that go on the crankshaft, and they actually have to go in back to back, facing opposite directions, and they have to be just about perfect to fit on the shaft and seal into this end here. So what we're going to do now is, this is probably the hardest part, is we're going to have to heat this case up, and got to get it pretty hot so that this inner core here, this bore here, needs to expand so that when we put this crankshaft in, this bearing can slide down in there. And when I say slide, I mean we're probably going to have to tap it a little bit with our wooden hammer, but we don't want to hit it too hard because we're going to be hitting it on this side, and I don't want to, you can see how a crankshaft is shaped there. You don't want to bang on it too hard. You're going to get it out of true. We don't want to do that. So going to put it in the oven, heat it up a little bit, and then probably going to take a little bit of MAP gas and put a torch to it, get it hot. Even got a little reader here. We want to get it up to about 300 degrees or so, get it nice and expanded, and then hopefully this will just drop right in. I'm also going to put a little bit of Loctite 518 on the bottom of this gasket, because if you look down in there, pretty well pitted. Okay, so this thing is fresh out of the oven at 250, and I went ahead and put the crankshaft in the freezer for about 30 minutes. We're going to look and see. We're at 127, so we got a ways to go. It's about 354. That's pretty hot. And our 518 and put on here. Drop that down in there like that. With any luck, this should go right in. And feels like it did. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we got to put these 2 oil seals. Heat this up just like we did that, and expand this a little bit. I'm going to put these in the freezer and cool them off a little, and we're going to tap them into place. Okay, that's seated in there pretty good. I think that'll make a good seal on that. Okay, this is going to be hard. I got to take all these needle bearings, and I can't lose a single one. Easy does it. Take your time. Don't lose a single one. Okay, I got them all in. I didn't lose any, so I'm gonna put these in the freezer for a few minutes, and that's gonna make them less likely to fall out. Out of the freezer and into the skillet. Put that on just a little bit upside down. You got to be careful and not drop this stupid thing. Then I can put this piston on this way very carefully. Put these guys in. I'm just going to get this one down. It's kind of sort of tight. I'm going to spin this around real carefully. Put the other one in. Kind of sort of tight. Okay, so our gasket only goes on one way. Okay, so now we are ready to put the rings on the piston. Like that. So now we have our head on, cylinder, piston rings. So we're just going to put our cylinder bolts on and clamp this down. Okay, now we're going to put these points back on and condenser and coil. This pin here has to go through this bottom hole to line it all up. Takes a little bit of farting around with, like that. And then we just got some screws to put in. Okay, so we got those on, and we're going to go ahead and check the gap here. And conveniently, right here on this label, it actually says that that point gap should be 0.025 inches. So we're going to use our feeler gauge, and we're going to measure it. And so what we got to do is rotate it until they open up. Moved it back out a little bit and check it again. Put this gasket seal thingy back on here and the plate and the clip, because this is our kill switch, and I can't remember if the kill switch goes on this post. Probably does. I think it all connects there. Go ahead and put the flywheel on, which we cleaned up a little bit. Got to go over that key, which it's not doing for some reason. Why is that? There we go. I'm actually not going to tighten this down too much further until I get the other side on, and that way it's easy to tighten them both down at the same time. Okay, before we go any further, we're going to test for sparks. I'm just going to jam the spark plug here into the plug wire, and I'm going to ground it here on top of the cylinder head, and I'm just going to spin this flywheel, which is going to be easy because there's no compression. And you probably can't see that, but I can see it's got pretty good blue spark there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in for you, and I'm going to turn the lights down where you can get a better picture of what's going on here. So give me just a second. Off. And maybe that's dark enough with my shadow you can see this, and here we go. So there you go. You can see that's got pretty good blue spark. Okay, so now we're gonna put on our carburetor, and this has been rebuilt. You can see my other video for how I did that, so it is ready to go. I had to make a gasket for this, which was pretty easy. I didn't feel like sourcing one this simple if I can just make it myself. It's got really thin edges here on the sides of those holes, so it's pretty precarious, but that's just how it's built, and that's what we're going to go with. I am going to use 518, but I'm only going to put it on one side, and that's going to be the carburetor side, because if I have to take this apart, I don't like gaskets tearing apart on me, and this way it'll come off with the carburetor, not be stuck on the engine where I have to take it off there. Other thing I'm going to do is, this is the bolt, if you want to call it that. It's more like a screw with the head on it, but that's what, there were 3 of these holding the carburetor in, and I really don't like those, so I'm going to use a little bit longer hex head, and it's going to be a little bit of a trade-off because getting this Allen wrench in there is going to be a little bit of a challenge, but I think those will actually hold it a little bit better and prevent any leaks. And then the other thing I'm going to do here is, because this whole throttle trigger mechanism, it's spring-loaded, so there's a spring-loaded trigger here that pushes this down, and I have this zip tied up so that it's fully extended, and then I also have this zip tied back because it's also spring-loaded. And the reason I'm doing that is so that when I put it down on here, I'm not going to be wrestling, pushing against those springs and making it more complicated to put on. So that is what we're going to do there. Okay, those are all tight, and that feels pretty good. No leaks there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these zip ties off. This one and that one. And back in business. Gonna put the clutch side back together. Got this plate here that goes in there, and then got these 2 Woodruff keys that go in there. There we go. washer goes on top of that. Then we've got a bushing. So I'm going to put some grease inside here, inside these needle bearings. I did not replace these needle bearings, but I could have. I felt like they were in good enough shape. This is a clutch, and so that needs to be dry in there, so you don't want to have any grease slinging around on the inside of that and causing that clutch to slip. Rim sprocket, new rim sprocket, 4047. Might put just a smidge of grease on these things. This is a compression nut, so we're going to have to crank her on. If you remember, both of these actually go the same way. Both are clockwise tighten. So I'm going to tighten them both down that way. Doesn't have to be super tight. So that's going to finish all the mechanical parts of this. The rest is just going to be putting the tank back on and our freshly painted parts like these. Okay, so we got our flywheel shroud back on, starting to look like a saw again. I got the switch in. Make sure that your on and off polarity is correct. It might be the opposite of what you might think. Is off, and this position is down, is actually conducting. So next thing we're going to do is I think we can go ahead and put the tank on now. All right, so I got the fuel line on. I happen to have some blue fuel line, believe it or not, laying around, so I used that. It was the right size. And I used stainless steel ear clamps there. But we're just going to go ahead and put the exhaust. I'm not going to call that a muffler. That is not a muffler. That's just a little deflector, if anything. Go ahead and put that on. Time for some fun here. I can't stand it anymore. I want to hear this thing spark up. I'm going to take a little bit of premix here, and I'm going to squirt into this hole. That may have been a lot. That probably flooded it. But I'm going to put the spark plug back in. But what you do when you don't have a starter, if it breaks, is you got to go old school. You got to wrap the rope around the pulley. This is real old school. But let's just see. Oh, that didn't work out well. Let's try that again. Contact. Oh, I heard a little bit. I think she's gonna talk to us here. And she's a runner. And so what we're going to do now is adjust these, what's called speed screws. So what you do is you make sure that it's all the way down. So we're going to go a half, 1, and a quarter. So that's 1 1/4 turns out on the high. And then on the low side, we're looking at 3/4. We're going to go a half and 1/4.